Good afternoon, everyone. This is Kim Schmidt, Executive Editor with Farm Equipment Magazine. Welcome to our latest webinar, Modernizing Your Service Department Toolkit for Success in the 21st Century, in conjunction with DIS. Today's presenter is Elise North, Senior Product Owner for DIS. She has nearly 12 years of experience working in the agriculture industry, and as a Senior Product Owner, she works with dealerships to learn and understand your specific needs and pain points, applying that insight to deliver easy-to-use solutions and dynamic industry best practices. Before we get things started, just a couple of housekeeping items. On your screen, there's a control panel with a Q&A icon. You can submit questions here at any time during the presentation, and then time permitting, we'll try to answer as many questions as possible. And the webinar is being recorded as always, and we will share that with everyone who's registered in the event you want to go and rewatch it later or share it with anyone else at the dealership. Okay, we're ready to get started. Thanks again for joining us, and you can take it away, Elise.
All right. Well, thank you for that introduction, Kim, and welcome to everyone. I appreciate you joining me today. So as we all know, the service department plays a very large part in generating revenue and driving customer satisfaction. And there are so many efficiencies that can be gained in the service department, but the manual or old school methods that have worked in the past just don't really cut it anymore. And we're living in a time period where technology is booming and digital tools are really starting to become the industry standard and best practice. So today we want to discuss 10 actionable ways that you can enhance your service department's efficiencies and bring it into the modern age. Now, before we dive into that, I do want to take just a couple minutes and give a really brief overview of DIS for either those of you who aren't familiar with us or who might need a reminder. So we'll just do a really brief company overview. So who is DIS and what's our mission? Well, we've been around for over 40 years, and we have experience with the agriculture, Thermo King, lift truck, and construction industries. Now, we got our start in the ag industry. And so we've been a DMS provider. We've been support focused where people and customers come first, but we've also moved into being a product and technology company where we're really interested in helping our customers grow and utilize the latest technology to experience that growth. Now, part of that is our people. So we have over 150 employees. While we're headquartered in Bellingham, we actually do have quite a few who work remotely, but a lot of us are still here in Bellingham. We have over 750 dealerships that use our software all over North America, and that amounts to over 2,000 locations. And a lot of us that work at DIS, we stick around for a while. So our average tenure is over 10 years at DIS. Now, we've got many manufacturers that work with us, of which we have contracts and endorsements with them. You see some of them listed here on the screen. So if you see us out at a manufacturer trade show, please come and say hi to us. We love talking with people and hearing about your experience at your dealership and how we might be able to help. Now, one thing that we're excited about at DIS is being a part of the Constellation Software Network. So we've been a part of that since 2017. And what's great about Constellation is that they have a huge amount of dealership software expertise. Now, when you're dealing with private equity software companies, they are the type that will acquire, they milk a business and they flip it. And that is not Constellation at all. They're a complete 180 from that. They've got a buy and hold philosophy. And their mantra really is to grow every business every year. So DIS has really benefited from that. We've seen a big investment back into development, which allows us to implement new products and solutions that help our customers. And so we're so privileged and excited to be a part of that Constellation network. So it's a little bit about DIS. If there's any questions, feel free to ask along the way. We'll also have a slide at the end where you'll be able to see contact information if you want to get in touch with us directly. We'd be happy to discuss further with you. But let's get back to the discussion at hand. So as mentioned, we're going to go through 10 actionable ways that you're going to be able to enhance your service department's efficiency. So starting with idea number one, that's the use of automated labor time rounding capabilities. Now, what I like about this one in particular is that of all of the ones that we're going to discuss today, this is the easiest one to implement and has the least amount of change. So really what this allows you to do is pick your rounding option that's going to make the most sense for your dealership. So you could either round up to the next hundredth, tenth, or quarter of an hour, whatever matches your needs. And of course, when you're implementing a solution, you want to know how it's going to benefit you. So with each of these 10 ideas, we're going to share the metrics behind it so that you can know exactly what you'd be getting back by implementing the idea. So now it's going to depend, of course, upon the rounding option that you choose, but we tend to go with the quarter of an hour being the one that is going to provide the best bang for your buck, so to speak. And so when implementing that, you really would be able to have a gain of at least $300 per technician per month. Now, we're basing our metrics with a typical operation of 10 technicians. So if we do that math of the $300 per technician multiplied by the 10 techs, well, that's $3,000 per month directly toward that bottom line. So that's a great improvement that you'd be able to implement in your service department. And like I mentioned, it's really not a big process change. In fact, I'm going to go over to my next slide here and show you how you could potentially implement that. So I've got an example here of the configuration. So again, there's different options. So hundredths, tenths, quarters. You could go for whole if you're adventurous. But what's great about this is that on a labor line by labor line basis, you're not really going to notice that huge change, which is great when your customer gets the bill. They're not going to be super shocked. But because you're adding a little bit each time, that's going to add up quickly. And so I have the example here of what the technician reported, the 1.62, and then using the quarter rounding, it ended up billing 1.75. So you think about one labor line times all the labor lines for the technician times all the technicians at your dealership, that's going to add up super quickly. So option number one, labor rounding. Let's see what number two offers. So that's automating your technician stories. So if I were to ask you, how do your technicians write down their stories today? Or how do they communicate that story to the back office? Now, you might answer that they print out a hard copy of the work order and they grab a pen or a pencil and they're handwriting it. Then they hand that back to the back office and that staff is manually keying that into the work order. Now we think about that, if they're doing that for every work order and every technician is doing that, that's a fairly large waste of time, especially when there are solutions out there that can help automate that process. So even if you go simply from handwriting your story to maybe typing it into a device, you're going to see a gain there. But we also have the ability to do voice to text. Now that's something that even in my day-to-day life, when I'm texting people, I like to use that just because, when you're typing on your phone or even a tablet, those keys can be small. And it's nice to just be able to talk right into your phone and have that technology work for you to just type in what you're saying. Now, the technology surrounding that has really improved over the last several years. And the devices that allow you to do that, there's a great diversity in as far as what devices you can have, as well as the costs have dropped significantly in the last few years. So if you're going to implement that kind of solution, what does that mean for metric-wise? Well, of course, it does vary on the number of segments or work orders that your technician's working on each day. But let's even say that it's a gain of 15 minutes per technician. Well, that amounts to about 5 hours of billable labor every month. We're going to use a $100 per hour labor rate. So if we do the math, that's $500 per tech. We use the typical 10 techs per operation, and now we're up to $5,000 per month added to your top line. So that's huge. Now that's just talking about how the technicians can improve their efficiency. This doesn't even get into how the back office benefits by not having to read the chicken scratch that the technician has written and key that into the work order. So this is really a win-win situation because the technician benefits, he can more easily record his story, and the back office benefits by having that automatically come into the business system, and all they're having to do is make quick edits and off they go to the next part in the billing process. So what could that look like for the technician? Well, I have some examples here. Now, the first one is kind of just showing you how you could type in your notes. So like we talked about, even moving from handwriting your stories to using a phone or a tablet to type in the notes, that's going to really improve the efficiency as well. So that's what this first one represents. Now, the second one takes it further from that text to speech to text option or voice to text. So you notice that the microphone option is highlighted. Pretty much every device that's out there has that. It's built into the keyboard, and they can just speak right into it, make some adjustments, and off they go. Now, I have an added bonus for you here. We're going to call it our 11th, or maybe I'll just call it 2B. And that is the ability to add photos at the same time that you're capturing your technician story. So I just have a brief example here of a damaged hose. And so maybe you need to prove that damage to the customer and you want your tech to take a picture, or you need to submit for warranty. Having the ability to take photos at the same time that you're typing out your notes and have them consolidated all into one convenient location is really going to make your service department more efficient. And that way you're not having to use other means, maybe Google Drive or sharing them through email. They're just, the notes and pictures are all right there in one location. So let's go off here to idea number 3. Now, this has to do with scheduling out work for your service department. So again, if I were to ask you, well, what methods are you using today to schedule your shop? I feel like I'd probably get some responses that maybe you are using a whiteboard, maybe you're using a spreadsheet. I know I visited one dealership somewhat recently where they were, rather than using like a time date based calendar, they had kind of queues for each of their technician, and it would be a prioritized list of work. And they had this huge cork board on the wall with hard copies of the work orders in order. And when the technician finished the top one, they'd have to manually move each one up. Now, it looked cool, but not super efficient, especially when there are tools out there that can help automate things. Now, what are some of the things that you would potentially want in a modern tool that's going to help you schedule? Well, no doubt you have multiple people who want to see what the schedule looks like. So you want a tool that's going to allow multiple users to be signed on, all seeing the same data and seeing it in real time as changes are made, either as the technicians are clocking and adding notes to the work order, or as somebody else is making adjustments to the scheduler. You also maybe want the ability to see the status of the work. So what are my technicians doing? What notes have they added? Have they started on a certain job? Do I need to reassign that job because the technician hasn't had a chance to get to it yet? So if the tool that you're currently using doesn't allow you to do those things, then you might need to take a look at some of the other options out there that do have those abilities. Now, as far as metrics are concerned, this is actually the first of 3 different areas where redirecting the back office time can result in allowing your advisors or your schedulers to spend more time selling shop work. So you're going to see this same metric a couple different times, but we're really looking at if you can take the time that you were using to manually update your whiteboard, whatever job board you're currently using, and redirect it into selling more shop labor, well, then you're going to see a gain. It typically amounts to about $1,250 per month, and that's per scheduler. So it's really going to depend on the number of schedulers or advisors that you currently have in your shop. So let's take a look at a couple examples of tools that you could use in order to better schedule work for your shop. So in my examples here, I have two different methods of planning. It's really going to depend on your dealership and what would work better. So in the upper left corner, we have the kind of mode that I already referred to that I had seen at that dealership, which was a queue method, where each technician has a queue of work and you're prioritizing the work within each of their queues. So here, it's a little bit hard to see with this screenshot, but here, we have the list of open work. You'd be able to move that over into the particular technician's queue, use the drag handles to adjust the priority order. And then you're also able to see the number of estimated hours that you've planned for each technician so that you can make sure you're not overloading one technician with too much work. So if you're more of a prioritized list option, you can do that. Or we also have the time date based calendar. So you're going to a particular day, you've got all of your technicians listed. Maybe you have technicians that are more appointment based, and so you want them to be able to schedule certain events at a particular time. You would be able to do that as well. Now, these tools, we could probably do an entire webinar on just these tools. And there's a lot that I could say about them, but this just gives you a little bit of an idea of what's out there. Both of these tools are they automatically refresh with new data, and then they also each time a work order is created, they show up there in that queue of work, and you'd be able to schedule or queue them from there. All right, so let's move forward on to option number 4. So we're on a roll here. So option number 4 has to do with the way that you communicate with your customers. Now, we all know that in any type of relationship that we have with people, communication is key. But really, it's how we communicate that we want to talk about here. So if you're currently using phone calls to communicate with your customers, there's definitely a better way to do that. So we think about outgoing calls when you're wanting to provide status updates to your customers. Really is going to depend on the dealership, but it could be anywhere from 10 to 40 calls per day. And we know a lot of those calls probably aren't as brief as we'd like them to be. So we're spending a lot of time on the phone there for status updates. And then you've got customers that are also going to come call you because they want to ask about their repair status or have other questions. So rather than spending so much time on the phone, if we could instead use a texting tool, well, that's going to allow so much more time to be utilized. Now, this is the second of the 3 metrics where we talked about how redirecting that back office time in order to use it more efficiently, to use it to sell shop labor. That's again going to amount to about that $1,250 per month per advisor. So we can really see the improvement there. And, as the generations are changing, people don't like to talk on the phone as much anymore. If we can get a quick status update through text, for a lot of people, that's preferable. So we'll just take a brief look at how that could be implemented. So we have an example here of a texting solution. So really what you're seeing is each conversation thread. Sorry about that. Each conversation has its own unique thread. You've got the ability to tie that to a particular work order. And it reads just like a text message would on your phone. With this solution, you are able to give visibility into multiple people within the shop. So rather than having a phone call where only that one person is privy to the information that's shared, you'd be able to have multiple people with eyes on the conversation. There's also things that you can do in here that you can't do with a phone call. So what if you want to send an image to your customer? Maybe you want them to take a brief video of the problem and send it to you. Or maybe you want to send a quote through PDF. Those are all things that you can't do with a phone call. So why not use a solution that's going to allow you to do all of that, plus save you time while you're at it? So we'll move on now to number 5. So we're almost halfway through, and that's automated time clock capabilities. So right now, if your technicians even if they are using a time clock machine for punching in and out, they are still having to cross the shop floor and walk back and forth for that for every single time that they want to make a punch. Now, that's really not the most efficient way or most the best use of their time. So what if they could do it a different way where they could punch into a device that they already have with them, either right there at their station or at the palm of their hand? Well, if they did, then when we look at, now again, this is dependent upon the number of segments that your technicians are working on. But let's say that it's even just 10 minutes per day. That's 4 hours of billable time. We've got our $100 labor rate. So that's 400. And now we multiply that by our typical 10 technicians, and that's $4,000 per month. It's a pretty significant improvement. So what might that look like? Well, again, this is using the same app as the story and the pictures was using in the previous slide. But what I love about this and what a lot of our customers have been buzzing about with this is that their technician doesn't have to know any type of codes. They're simply telling the system what they're doing. So they're either, maybe they're a road technician and they're going to travel to the customer site. They could tell it that it's en route, tell the system that they're en route. If they're a shop technician, maybe they go directly to that working status. Then they're going to also be able to put a work order on hold, and perhaps they're going to lunch, or they've got some training that they're going to. Maybe they are out sick for the day, or have to, leave suddenly and go home sick. All of that can be recorded here, and that can come directly into the business system. So the back office is able to get a nice timesheet. So as the technician is clocking, he's building a timesheet. He'll submit that when he's finished for the day. And then all the back office has to do is make adjustments. So there's no manual entry from the back office side, having to either, if he's handwriting or using just a punch in and out slip, there's no manual entry. The system did the work for the technician, and it's going to do the work for the back office. So we'll continue on now to our sixth example. So this is going to be our third area of potential back office process improvement that's going to gain more time. So what are you currently doing when you need to know what your technicians are doing? Well, if you're walking the shop floor to check on your technicians, that's really not the most efficient way, because there are tools that are going to be able to give you a real-time view of what they're up to. And added bonus, you don't have to interrupt them to figure that out. So when you're using tools that allow your technicians to be more automated with their stories, with their time, you're able to see that come into your back office tools in real time. And now you know exactly what they're doing. So have they started on a particular segment? How much time have they clocked against it? Which ones maybe haven't been started yet that might need to be redirected to a different technician? If your customer's calling about what the status is of their repair, you'll be able to see that by looking into these tools, which is going to end up in better customer satisfaction. So again, we use that metric that we talked about before. If you can redirect that time that they're using by figuring out what's going on with each of the jobs the technicians are working on, that's going to give them more time to sell, and that can result in that $1,250 per month improvement per advisor. So there's actually many tools that could help see status updates on work orders, but one that I want to mention. So we're showing here a job status board, and this actually allows you to do multiple things. But one thing it does allow you to see that I wanted to kind of hone in on here is the ability to see the estimated hours for each job and what has been punched so far. So you're really able to stack up each job and say, all right, he's reaching kind of reaching what we estimated here, or maybe in this case, I estimated 4 and now he's overtime. And so maybe you need to go, maybe that's when you go have a conversation with the technician and say, hey, Derek, what's up here? Looks to be quite a bit over what we had planned for this job. And you'd be able to do a lot of other things with this board too. It has things as, part status, and it'll show you which jobs the technicians have completed on their side and which ones are ready for billing. So again, this is one of those things we could dive in deeper. And if this interests you, we'd certainly be happy to share more. Well, let's continue on to number 7. So we're going to get into technician efficiency. Now, most people want to know their technician efficiency, but they spend a lot of time compiling that data when they really want to be spending that time analyzing the data and looking for ways that they can improve. So if I were to ask you, well, how are you pulling that data today and how much time does it take you? A lot of people are spending so much time that when they automate it, it's really going to amount to saving $400 to $800 per month. Now, that's just with the overhead time it takes to compile the reports. Utilizing those reports and analyzing which technicians need improvement and in what areas by having them be involved in improvement actions, well, that's going to increase your technician's efficiency. And it's very easy to amount that to $500 per improved technician per month. And if we multiply that by, the number of technicians that you have, that's a huge gain in efficiency. So what might that look like? Well, here's an example of a technician efficiency report. Now, this is a type of report that could be pulled on a specific date range. So if you want to look at efficiency over time, you'd be able to do that. You can look at your overall efficiency numbers across all of your technicians, or maybe even in a specific branch. But you also are able to drill down into a particular technician. You could sort that by efficiency percentage. Maybe you want to see your most efficient technician at the top, or in reverse, you want to see your least efficient technician. That's going to allow you to easily identify the technicians that need a little bit of assistance with an action plan for improvement. And then additionally, the importance of this is when you're manually pulling reports for technician efficiency, if that data easily becomes stale and you're having to pull it again and again and again, the benefit of a solution like this is that this updates in real time as your technicians are making their clocking and closing out work orders, and you're not having to spend all of that time manually pulling those reports. So you can be confident that you're always looking at up-to-date information, regardless of the time of the month that you're looking at it. So now we're going to go on to number 8. So this is the work in process monster, and we call it that because it really can be. A lot of dealers end up having work in process files that are weeks, sometimes I have seen even months worth of labor, and so much money is there on the table. And they feel overwhelmed with figuring out how to get those work orders closed, to figure out reasons that there are delays in billing. So having a tool that's going to easily help you to identify all of the work orders that are in that state and get those updated is really going to be key in tackling this problem and seeing an increase in efficiency and billing. So, maybe you're interested in seeing the biggest thing for really controlling your work in process monster here is seeing why something is still open. So could it be that there's parts on back order? Could it be that a technician was maybe never assigned, or he something fell through the cracks with him getting the memo that he was assigned to that job? Could it be that you're waiting for a customer to approve the job? So having a visual into that is really going to be key in helping you to resolve this problem. Now, added to that is if you are able to have a tool that allows you to drill down even right into the work order itself to make adjustments, well, then that's going to even see additional improvements. So we've seen with dealers who have been able to start tackling this, that they're seeing billing increases of $4,000 to $5,000 per month. And of course, that's also going to result in your customers being more satisfied because you're on top of their jobs. Nothing gets forgotten that way. So again, we're going to take a look at how a way that you could solve this. So this is a service work in process key performance indicator module here. And what I like about this one is you have complete control over how you want to view this data. So if you're a multi-store dealership, if you want to look at things as a whole, you're able to do that. But you also can drill down into your individual stores and see how much open dollars you have on the table. You can even segment it out by internal warranty and customer work. And all of these are drillable right down to the work order itself, where you're able to view all of the detail lines, parts, notes, labor, and you can make adjustments there. You also can even drill down into an informational grid where you can filter that down. Maybe you want to see all of your work orders that are back ordered waiting for parts. And now you have a nice little list of parts orders that you need to check on. So there's many ways that this data can be analyzed, but having a tool that can compile all of it and allow you to drill down to really see the details behind why work orders are open, that's going to be key in fixing this problem and gaining that efficiency. So now we'll move on to number 9. So this kind of goes back to technician efficiency, but how can you help your technician to be as good as your best technician? Now we know that each technician is going to have their own skill set, and it really depends on the type of work that's being done or the type of category class of machine that they're working on. Technicians potentially have certain certificates that they've received, and so they're going to be more apt to work on that type of machine and be more efficient. But how do you know that? And that's really the key, is being able to dive into those details to see how much labor time did my technician clock against this particular machine. So if you're able to analyze that and know that this technician is weaker when he works on this type of machine or this type of work versus this other technician who excels, well, now you're able to see certain training opportunities, or where you'd be able to find additional efficiencies if you were able to get them the training that they needed. Or in some cases, that might just be until the time that that technician can gain additional training and become more efficient with that type of work. Then maybe you don't assign that type of job to them and you give it to the technician that is more efficient. So if you're able to increase the efficiency of those techs that are ranked a little bit lower with certain types, then that's going to really increase your overall efficiency. And we can see that metric there. That could be easily $1,000 per improved tech per month. So that's huge. And it also allows you to look for ways where maybe one technician is able to help another and kind of share some of that knowledge. So we want to look at an example of, well, how can I know where my technicians are most efficient? Well, again, we're looking at this type of analytics report, and this is our technician scorecard. So here we're drilled down into a particular technician, and we can see his efficiency percentages. So we're looking at extremely high efficiency percentage for this particular work order. This would allow me to drill down into it to get the details behind it. And then the reverse, just like I could with that efficiency report, I could go lowest to high and see where he's weakest and maybe needs some additional training. And then you would be able to also do this based on a specific time frame. So it would be great for tracking efficiency over time. So what he's currently at, maybe he gets some training and you want to pull a report later on to see how he's improved. So analyzing your technician's efficiency based on type of work or type of machine can really be a key to increasing overall tech efficiency in your service department. Well, now we've pretty much reached the end here with number 10. So we recognize that there's a lot here, and you might be feeling overwhelmed, and that's certainly not the takeaway that we want. But it really starts with thinking about all of the areas that we've talked about and identifying a couple that really speak to your particular dealership. Where are a couple areas where maybe you see the most pressing need of change? And start there. You do not have to tackle all of these at once, and really nor should you. You want to pick somewhere to start, and as you start implementing that and seeing the effects, you can pick other areas to focus on until you've implemented all of them. And as you gradually embrace each area of change and you look back even a year from now, you're going to be amazed at how far you've come. But it really is going to start with determining, where do you want to focus? Are you looking to increase efficiency, or do you want to increase your top line revenue? Maybe you want to decrease costs. It could be that you're going to focus on two of the three areas, or you might be advantageous and want to do all three. So start there. And realize, maybe analyze the current tools that you're using. Do they allow you to grow and make the needed changes? Do they allow you to be a modern dealership that utilizes digital tools? And so we can see the overall metrics there. If you were able to eventually do all of the profit improvements, now we're again using that 10 tech shop, well, that could be over $12,000 per month. And that's when you're thinking about that, change is hard, especially for technicians. Maybe some of them are older and kind of fight change. Having that profit improvement is really going to justify that pain of change, so to speak. So again, I'll just give a couple examples here. So if we're talking about decreasing cost, you could use a report that's looking at your expenses, or maybe you want to analyze your sales versus your budget. You'd utilize a report to see, what you planned or forecasted versus what you actually sold. And what's great about these two reports is that not only is it going to help you to maybe identify areas of change, but they can also be used as you do implement change to look back and see just how much you've benefited at the end of the day. So utilizing these tools, they are really going to enhance your service department. And like I mentioned, do not feel like you have to implement all of them at once. Pick the ones that speak to you the most and start with something that maybe is a bit more, maybe you suspect is a bit easier for you to implement, and go from there. So again, I want to thank you for joining, and we're going to go over to the Q&A. So I'm going to move that back to Kim and see what kind of questions we have.
All right. We had one question come in kind of early on. So is there a specific DIS program that the examples you used come from, or is it, or specific, you were talking about an app, is there a specific part of it that those examples came from?
Yeah, so our examples that we had throughout the presentation actually come from different products. So we've got some that came directly from the business system, and then some that come from kind of extensions of the business system. We do have a mobile app for technicians. So once we're done here, I'm going to post a slide that has our contact information, and I'd be happy to, if you contact us, we'd be happy to share those products with you. We can dive a bit deeper into them. And help you to see the power behind those tools.
All right. And then if a dealer was, wants to try to implement some of these ideas you shared, where would you suggest they start? Which of those 10 are the best places to start?
Yeah. So again, I think that is really going to depend on your dealership specific needs, but the one that I recommend, simply because it's going to be the easiest, it doesn't cost anything, and it's super easy to implement, would be that labor rounding. It's really doesn't change your process all that much, and when it doesn't cost anything, but it pays back big dollars, that's a great one to start with.
Okay, and then does DIS have any routing or drive time tools?
So we don't at the moment. That is something we have discussed dispatching at great length, and is something that we're considering for the future.
Okay. And then for those dealers who their techs aren't ready to automate, what can they do? Is there any solution for them?
Yeah, so we've actually seen that quite a bit. Sometimes it can be the technicians that are the hardest to convince to change. And there still are several things that the back office can implement. Even changing your process with the way that you're planning can help tremendously, even if you're not changing anything on the technician side, but you start changing some of your back office processes, particularly when it comes to the scheduling or the planning. That would definitely be a great start. And again, we'd be happy to share the tools that we have that could help you to do that.
Okay. And then can this be integrated with Auto It Equip program or Auto IT Equip program?
I'm not familiar with that program, and I think it would really depend on which product you're talking about. But again, I would just encourage you, we'd be happy to have those discussions with you. So in fact, while we're talking here, I'll just put that slide on. So that's our contact information. We've got a phone number you can call, of course, an email if that's easier. And then if you want to explore our website, we do have some additional information, some product sheets that you'd be able to take a look at. And then we can dive deeper with our sales or account managers to show you more about what we offer and what we can integrate with.
All right. And we've got one more question so far, but just a reminder to everyone, feel free to submit questions using that Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. How can dealers get some of these details and charts from their DIS system?
Yeah, so all of those, the charts and the different efficiency reports are a part of one of actually our newest products called Analytics. And the pricing is dependent upon the size of your dealership. In order for anyone to be able to benefit. But again, we can certainly demonstrate that. If you reach out to us, we'd be able to, dive deeper into the product and provide pricing on that as well.
All right. Just going to give another few seconds to see if anyone else has any questions. If not, we can wrap things up. Okay, well, if anyone does think of any questions, feel free to reach out to the email that Elise has up on the screen. You can always send us at Farm Equipment emails and we'll pass them along to the DIS team as well. As a reminder, today's presentation will be available on the Farm Equipment website in case you want to go back and review it or share it with anyone else at your dealership. Keep an eye on your Farm Equipment or on your email for the Farm Equipment newsletter for more information on when we have that up. And on behalf of Elise, the DIS team, and the Farm Equipment staff, thank you for joining us for today's webinar. Feel free to reach out to me if there's any topics you'd like us to cover in the future. And thanks again, and enjoy the rest of your day.
All right. Thanks, everyone.